Welcome everyone. So I'm really excited for our today webinar, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your patience. So our today webinar is about understanding and preventing burnout at work. Now, who is this webinar for? This webinar is for HR leaders, events manager, talent acquisition, employee well-being benefits managers, and all those actually people within our organization who are responsible for taking care of our employees' well-being. Those people who are responsible for taking care of our employees' mental health. And as you know, I have built a community with, like people like you who work in HR, because I want to add as much value as possible from my experience. Now, some of you might not know me, and that's okay. So my name is Alexandra. I'm a corporate well-being architect, the CEO and founder of Oxygen, an urban yoga lab, and I'm a former PR executive. I think some people are unmuted, Maria. So if we can make sure that everyone is on mute, that would be great. So for the last couple of years, I have traveled to over 40 countries. I have immersed myself in cultures all over the world with one single mission: to hack sustainable high performance via evidence-based well-being tools. So I've spent time in Buddhist monasteries, in mindfulness centers. I have run some retreats with big brands in hospitality. But over the last, since 2020, I have helped more than 50 global brands, including Wells Fargo, Sarah Haas, Royal Bank of Canada, to empower their employees' well-being. I'm also an advocate when it comes to well-being. I have been a keynote speaker in more than 25 summits and conferences. And next month, I will be at the CIPD, and you're invited. If you're in London and you want to join me, feel free to register. We will drop the link below. Now, you might be wondering who we are as Oxygen. So if you have never heard about us before, we are a health and wellness body that fits inside your employees' pockets, giving them access to 250 live and kind of pre-recorded videos, blogs, podcasts, articles, self-tests, anything you can possibly imagine across 10 pillars of well-being and mental health, including DEI, family well-being, and digital well-being. Financial well-being is a hot topic too. So Oxygen removes all the hassle from employee well-being planning, vendor sourcing, events recommendation, booking, and payments. Now, in terms of the agenda today, just for you to know what we will cover, first of all, we will discuss some of the key challenges when it comes to employee burnout. We're going to discuss the steps to make work less stressful for your employees, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end for questions. But I just want to say, right, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions during the webinar, as we always do, feel free to drop them in the chat below. Maria, how lovely to see you. Elise, lovely to see you again. I love seeing some people joining my webinars over and over again. That means we do something good here. So that always gives me so much happiness, makes me feel so excited. Another thing, the presentation will be recorded and you will receive the replay. If you need to leave earlier, don't worry, we'll share the replay. Also, I do like to be interrupted as often as possible, so feel free to pop some questions in the chat, but also feel free to share your tips, your own best practices, your own experience. For me, this series of webinars is more about creating a space, like a forum where we exchange ideas. So for those of you who just joined, we are talking about employee burnout. So let's dive in. You might be wondering, where did we get the data for in terms of what I will be presenting today? Well, we produced a white paper on the future of work just a few months ago, which we produced it with Fortune 500 companies and was featured on Forbes. So today I will share some of the key insights from this report. And also, there are some findings from a recent report conducted by National Institute of Health. By the way, just to let you know, if you want access to the white paper, you can take just scan this QR code and you'll be able to download it. As simple as that. Now, it's interesting because burnout is a topic very close to my heart because I experienced burnout myself when I was working in the corporate world 5 years ago. I used to be a PR strategist for some very, very big brands in technology. I was a workaholic. And one day, like any other day, I went to the office and I experienced a panic attack right in front of my client, right? So that's what makes me so passionate about this topic. Because back then I used to think that people who are in love with their careers, they never experience burnout. I had this kind of false impression that it happens among people who actually hate their jobs, who wake up in the morning and just don't want to go to the office. I wasn't one of them, so I was kind of shocked. And because of that experience, I got disconnected from my job for 6 months, which was a really traumatic experience. So my mission in life is to help employees, to help HR leaders who want to empower their employees so they don't need to go through this dark phase I went through 5 years ago. So 4 reasons for burnout, and I can testify that myself because I've been there, is number 1, excessive workloads, insufficient autonomy, micromanaging, right? Breakdown of community. Now in this hybrid working environment, we have our employees working, from home, but some of them they work from the office, and some of them we have no idea where do they work from. So how do we build that strong sense of community? And the last thing is lack of appreciation, which can actually double the risk. Now, some other factors, actually, there is another report which actually confirms that these are the key factors. Increased workload, 54%, working unpaid overtime, 45%, and feeling isolated at work. That goes back to what we said earlier about the lack of community, at 42%. So the question was, as HR leaders, is number 1, how do we make sure that our employees do not overwork or they are responsible for so many projects that it's impossible for them to perform? Number 2, how do we make sure that they don't work over the weekends or long hours? And number 3, how do we build that sense of community, that sense of belonging, despite having everyone working from different kind of locations? And this is one of the main challenge, I would say, because I'm in conversations with HR leaders on a daily basis, so these are the main challenges I have personally identified myself too. So when it comes to the challenges we have identified on our white paper, confirm what we have seen in previous reports. So there is a lack of work-life balance, for example, difficulty to manage performance, and we see lack of connection among hybrid employees. Now, how to manage and identify burnout in our workplace? It is really, really difficult, right? And I know so many of my clients, they try their best to try to identify the alarming signs. They try to put systems in place, but let's be honest, it's really, really difficult, right? So number 1, for me, from my experience, running more than 50 kind of programs from more than 50 global brands, is that it's really important to create psychological safety. Now, what happens time and time again, I see companies which actually, share some surveys, right? And try to get insights from their employees to see, okay, how do they feel when it comes to their energy, their sleep, their nutrition. Then what happens is that there is high number of employees do not feel like this, if they share their honest opinion, that this data are, kind of anonymous. And even if we say they are, we always do, right? There is a very large number of employees who are actually skeptical, and they don't really share what they think and how they feel. So there is a way I have personally used with our team to get their honest opinion on certain things and to be able to identify the real challenges, needs, and priorities within an organization. And this is you can do the same with the platforms you like, the platform vendors that you work with, right? It's about selecting a user-friendly well-being platform, accessible across all devices, and then you invite your employees to navigate, freely on the platform. And every, let's say, 2 to 3 months, you get access to this data on the back end, GDPR friendly, not it's all anonymous, of course, but then you get access to the reports on the back end, and you can see, oh, wait a second. Here I see employees who are clicking on, an article on burnout. And this is 73% of my employees. This is alarming. So effectively, what happens is, because employees feel super confident and comfortable to navigate themselves to the platform, to click through different places, to use it so they can build their own personalized journey, they feel more open to share. And as a result, as HR leaders, we can get a more kind of honest feedback. So, for example, the other day, I presented a similar report to a client in technology. Oh, it's one of our biggest clients. And I presented the report, and there was a certain part on the report which shows that 45% of the employees clicked on an article which was about mental health before, during, and after getting a divorce. So what happens was that the employer had no idea that this might be an issue among the employees, that's something that worries them, So then they were able to say, you know what, it's time to do a workshop or a webinar or a training on this topic. Let's see how we can better support our employees who are struggling with that. So it's a good way to identify organizational challenges, needs, and priorities more effectively. Second thing is all about leading by example to motivate your team members. Now, there are times where we run programs with organizations which are super successful, like super successful. And then we build case studies, we go to HR awards, and like, it's amazing, right? And we then run the same programs with some other organizations in the same industry. And they are unsuccessful. And the engagement is low, and the utilization rates are so low. And we are wondering, what makes or the organization A to be so successful and organization B to be so unsuccessful? And honestly, from my opinion, from my own experience, 9 out of 10 times comes down to the leaders within the organization. And if, whether as HR leaders, we were able to, make it happen when it comes to buying, right? Make then engaged as senior leaders within our organization to want to be our greatest advocates. And when we are able to make this happen, miracles happen. So, for example, some of our the companies we work with, their senior leaders have decided to follow, our strategy, which is about once a month you dedicate half a day to self-care activities for your employees, and this can be many different ideas like rescue puppy visits, to onboarding them on a well-being platform, a half-day retreat, things that can boost motivation and engagement, but initiatives which are actually led by your leaders. And that makes such a big difference. The next thing when it comes to burnout and preventing burnout is to building a supportive mental health culture. And I think I've said that before, but it's really, really important. It doesn't cost much. It doesn't take like a lot of resources, but it's a game changer. This is all about building a stress management toolkit, which can be quick stress relief exercises, breathing techniques, guided meditations, things that your employees can use anytime, anywhere. And this can be a part of your intranet, a certain tab where your employees click on it and they can find everything they need when it comes to stress, anxiety, sleep issues, all those things. And that's another way to show that you care, that you are proactive about burnout. And it's interesting because I see very, very big organizations which actually they do not offer this kind of toolkits to their employees. And that always makes me wondering, like, it doesn't require much time, effort, energy, budget. It's easy, right? On any of those practices, if you have any questions or you want to dive deeper, feel free also to let me know in the comments, or you can book a 20 minutes virtual coffee with me any moment, right? We'll drop the link in the comments below where you can book a virtual coffee with me and we can dive deeper. Next thing is about compassionate leadership. Now, there is a high percentage of Gen Zs and millennials we connect with on a daily basis who are like terrified when it comes to that time of the year where they have their annual review and it's time to receive feedback. And the stories we hear, it's like a horror movie. And we see employees, especially millennials and Gen Zs, who are actually so much worried about receiving, the feedback from their manager, and so traumatized because they have received feedback before, but in a way that is not compassionate, it's not empathic, it is not based on active listening, right? And because of that, we see them are struggling with chronic stress and anxiety. So to help to help this kind of employees to feel better, it's really important to offer emotional intelligence trainings to your managers. And this can be soft skills programs, which can actually help you to create the right culture within your business. Some ideas that we have seen that work really well before is number one, conflict resolution and mediation training. Of course, giving and receiving effective feedback is another very important training. Group coaching and mentoring program, and leadership development seminars. So then last part is a knowledge hub. We have a question. How do you make mental health culture at work exciting when employees do not believe in it? Michelle, this is such a great question. Because the buy-in is not just related to our senior leaders within our business, has to do with our employees as well, right? So for me, what I have seen that works great time and time again is to engage your champions. those people within your organization who are the influencers, and ask those people how you can make well-being exciting within the organization and how they can help you be part of that initiative. That's one of the many ideas. I can share more if you want. We can have a virtual coffee and like talk about it endlessly. Oh, another thing, I just very recently I gave an interview. It was on Raconteur, where I actually share some of the most exciting ways to make your employees engaged when it comes to your well-being program. So I'm happy to share the link with you if you're interested. The next thing is a knowledge hub. Now, I just want to say, many organizations, they create that kind of knowledge hub, which looks so old school. Like millennials and Gen Zs do not feel included. They do not feel like this has been built with their own preferences in mind. So, for example, I see booklets, worksheets, posters, awesome, right? Don't get me wrong, this is great, but there is a better way of doing that. And this is by just thinking what your employees actually want to watch, what makes them really excited. And from our experience again, we have seen that when we actually turn booklets and posters and all those things into interactive short form video content, this can be teasers, trailers, recaps, then employees feel like more interested in actually being part of the initiatives we organize for them. And of course, it helps them to stay informed and aware of how to take care of their mental health. Thank you so much for sharing, Maria. The next thing is, okay, yeah, of course, you can have an internal communication toolkit internally, but it's much better if you use video content. Now, we are almost at the end. Do you have any questions? Anything at all? You can download our white paper here, by the way. Any questions? As you know now, the webinar series I run each time lasts no more than 30 minutes. So we can make it like, to the point, giving actionable practical tips, easy to follow, easy to implement. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. My next free webinar is all about loneliness in the workplace, and more specifically, how so many Gen Zs, they do feel isolated, they do feel lonely and disconnected, and how we can actually help make things better when it comes to that. On Wednesday and Thursday, June 12th and June 13th, both days I will be at the CIPD conference. I will be facilitating a series of immersive ultra-training well-being experiences in a nice Zen space area. You are invited. And of course, there is another webinar, which is about reinventing work-life balance